Hi all, back again. I'm now here with another one of ThreeD's portfolio companies and CEO of AIML. AIML is a health tech company, but it's much more than just your typical AI health tech company. It's not limited just to that. Paul, please give us a rough overview of the company, its founding, and your track record.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Hello, everybody, and thank you, Hector. Appreciate the opportunity. First and foremost, AIML Innovations Inc. Trades here on the CSE over the counter and in Frankfurt. The company itself has been around for about 4 years. I joined as the CEO September 11th of 2023. The thesis of AIML is very simple. We invest, we acquire, and we operate a number of companies that are focused in and around the intersection of AI and healthcare. And so, probably our most prominent at the moment is a company called HealthGauge. We own pretty much 97% of that company. It is a business that has patented and proprietary technology around neural nets, specifically targeted at blood pressure measurement. So we're able to use devices like our smart sensor watches, make them available in a non-invasive way for virtually anybody to take a medical grade measurement of blood pressure. And so that is one of a number of products that AIML is bringing into the market.
Lovely, very, very nice. And I think the watch is something that we've been looking at and seeing press releases on very recently. Just before I get into that, I just want to touch on the relationship you have between ThreeD and how long that's been going for.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I believe that AIML is really beginning to flourish, primarily because we've come into, I'll call it the orbit of ThreeD Capital. Before I entered the picture, Tim Daniels, our chair, and a number of executives have already been working with investees like ThreeD Capital. But as we began to blossom, pretty much the opportunity into the market, both Jackson and Sheldon took a fairly good look at what we were doing and came in on our last capital raise. In addition to that, as you can tell, I'm here at the ThreeD Capital offices. I found the synergies between what they're doing in their basket of businesses and, of course, what we want to do. Not just complementary, but it allowed us to accelerate a number of our go-to-market programs, given their relationships, given their complementary businesses. So I felt it was very important for us to sort of thread ourselves into or feather into the ThreeD Capital story. And frankly, I just think it's going to be a phenomenal 2024 for both ThreeD Capital and AIML.
Yeah, it seems like there's more than just a collaboration between the two companies, but with all the portfolios as well, which is lovely. So going on to the watch then. So it might be the first of its kind to be approved by the FDA, an immediate catalyst for Q1, Q2. Obviously, a huge milestone that seems to have already been met. Can you tell us about that, its application, and when you estimate it to be, income producing for the company?
Sure. So the process with the blood pressure measurement product, it's being branded Follow Your Heart. And the concept is that it will be available through a number of retail distribution channels. So think pharmacies. You're able to go into your pharmacy, pick up the product. Today it is a wellness product. In other words, the neural net takes that measurement, is now sufficiently trained to be submitted to the FDA. And so that is a process that is happening through Q1 of this year. Expectations being that it will exit the QA for the FDA cycle as we back into early Q3. So take the window of Q2 and maybe the first month of Q3, say the July timeframe. At which point we will then be granted FDA certification for the neural net, and the format there is software as a medical device. That doesn't prohibit us from being able to go to market and sell the product. The expectation is that as we exit February, the product will be moving through retail channels. But what it does mean is once we do obtain the certification from FDA, we're able to take the product and actually increase both the volume and the revenue around it. So I believe that we'll be income generating with Follow Your Heart as a product for AIML towards the second half of 2024, back into Q3, early Q4.
Very nice indeed.
Yeah.
Are wearables the company's focus? What other, not that you need any more initiatives, are there any more? Are you pursuing any at the moment?
Yeah, there's a couple, but you're not wrong. You can get. We do not want to be a mile wide and an inch deep on capability.
Yeah.
We're going to focus very specifically on an inch wide and a mile deep. So, neural net training for biometric data is a key piece of our story. Both our investment thesis around acquisition and investing in operating companies, as well as how we go to market, all follow three very simple terms: capture, analyze, action. So if I am wearing a watch and I'm capturing a biometric signal, I would like the AIML technology, that is the neural net, the machine learning, and the AI, to take that signal, convert it to an actionable information pulse, and then make that available to any remote management platform that clinics and healthcare professionals are using. We have our own platforms like that, but we also play well with other platforms. We've got a very broad market aperture that we can go after. And so for us, it's not just blood pressure. It's all sorts of biometric information that we're capturing. And this is a very frothy market. I mean, when we develop and actually obtain certification for our neural nets with blood pressure measurement, we'll be able to license that neural net to the entire wearable ecosystem. And so this is not just watches, rings, weight scales. Soon you'll start to see clothing, eyewear, and other devices, even earbuds, using biometric sensors, smart sensors, to capture that information. Well, when they capture it, what are they going to do with it? And that's where we come in. We provide the pathway through to an actionable information pulse that can flow nicely into whatever the therapy or the program is that the individual wants.
Very, very cool indeed. And on my last interview with Jackson, he was talking a lot about inflammation, and I hadn't really thought too much on it, but it's definitely one of the biggest things to cause problems for the body. Just moving on slightly onto recent press release with HealthGauge. It's very, very interesting, tackling some long COVID issues in a pilot program. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, so the company HealthGauge have for a number of years had a very interesting biometric platform. And so when I entered the picture back in September of last year, what I did really was I looked at forming literally a biometric platform for life sciences that could be used for a variety of different therapies, particularly in a remote context. And so when I'm doing that, I'm always looking for early adopters and pilot programs that we can step into. And one such one was long COVID. This is one of those sort of ailments, if you would, that globally is starting to fall into, I would call it, the mainstream zeitgeist. You're hearing more and more about long COVID. In fact, in the UK, here in North America, it's fair to say that then probably up to 15% of people that have had COVID experience some forms of long COVID. In fact, about 3 to 5% of them end up permanently with long COVID. It becomes a disruption in their life. And so, funny enough, physiotherapy clinics are actually the go-to for a lot of this longer rehabilitation that's required to run long COVID. We've recently announced a partnership and a pilot program with a very innovative clinic company here in Canada called Cornerstone Physiotherapy. They've about a dozen different physical locations that they are servicing a number of long COVID patients with. But they're very advanced in the approach of using biometrics and remote management platforms and tools to enable them to reach an even broader patient suite. And so that's what we've begun piloting with them, utilizing our smart sensor capability for things like watches, using our neural nets to really harden the information we're getting and make it, very accurate, and then delivering that into remote patient management platforms so that they can manage with the patient remotely. So in many cases, once you start your long COVID therapy, you don't need to go back in for a physical visit. You can actually do it just like we're doing now with Zoom, but you're integrating all the biometric information into the therapy. So I'm very excited about that because it is a significantly scalable opportunity if done successfully in a remote environment.
Yeah, very, very true. And I feel like I'm aware of some of the symptoms of long COVID,
Yeah.
but you guys, are you tackling specific symptoms, or are you going for the broad spectrum? For me, it was, I caught COVID a few times. It was more like a alertness, brain fog, and severe tiredness.
All of that.
Yeah.
All of that. So, what's beautiful here is, so you have biometric and you have non-biometric data that you're feeding into the system. The biometric are obviously the information pulses you're getting. The non-biometric is, you're responding to surveys, to questions. It's anecdotal and subjective information you're feeding back to the clinician, right? So what the biometric data does is it allows the non-biometric, the subjective data, to really get hardened into a more accurate picture for the clinician. So in other words, they can look at your heart rate variability. They can look at your blood pressure. They can see your sleeping rates in your studies along those lines, and then listen to what you're telling them and put the two together to get a more accurate picture of how the therapy is performing. And of course, based on that, they can adapt your steps forward in the therapy. I think it's going to be quite a bit of a breakthrough for long COVID, without a doubt.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. Last two questions. Tell us about your clinical care pathway solution and your subsidiary that you've got a stake in, Tech to Heal, which you just told me before we started this call is based or has an office in Paris.
Yeah. So Tech to Heal is one of our investee companies. It is operated out of Paris, France. We have a joint venture with Tech to Heal here in North America. It's an exclusive license for their Allokeen platform. It's a phenomenal, care pathway tool. To give you an example, in France, for instance, the country actually selected Allokeen to do Europe's largest distributed clinical trial. That is 30,000 citizens in France from age 50 to 70 going through a 5-year study across 10 different vectors to really understand the societal impacts on the graduation of retirement from, say, 65 to 70 years old. So how can that basically, what impact does that have on society? And so when they study the platforms, clinical trial systems that are out there, Allokeen was selected because of its capability and its broad use, for instance. So we're taking that same technology, implanting it here through the first half of 2024 into North America. And we want to run very hard into the market of distributed clinical trials. It's for a variety of reasons. First is, if you look at the clinical trial space, you can see that it's amongst one of the fastest growing areas within healthcare. But more importantly, there's a sliver in that market that is called the clinical trial management system. So small market, about 2 billion or so in, I'll call it sort of addressable market, but there's no gorilla. And so we feel with our Allokeen product and our history in Europe, we're going to be able to substantively step into that space and offer a lot of remote distributed clinical trials to organizations that require that. And if you actually feather in our biometric data, so our ability to capture remotely the biometric data that we're getting, that just further enhances our value proposition for a distributed clinical trial. So I'm very excited about that. It's going to take a few months to get this, for the setup, get it operational. We've got some compliance that we're going to be putting in place on top of it, Fire, HIPAA, and others. But this is a product that's ready to go, and very strong market opportunity. And again, this is another area we're working with ThreeD Capital. Really allows us to sort of force multiply everybody's efforts. Their network, their existing businesses, their go-to-markets complement quite nicely with some of the relationships and some of the programs that we would like to bring distributed clinical trials into. So I'm certain you're going to hear more about this as we go through 2024.
Yeah, and there seems to be a lot of crossovers also within for your initiatives with your products and what you're doing there. Last question. So what makes you stand out from other health tech and AI companies? Obviously, you've got so many initiatives there. Some of them are really interesting. You've actually got products you're showing us that would have been coming on screen whilst we were speaking. Yeah, and it's very, very, very interesting. Any catalysts? Although we've talked about the FDA approved watch and all sorts like that.
Yeah, for sure. I think, we've got a couple of really, what I consider powerful differentiators. Clearly our technology, across a variety of segments. It's the AI, machine learning, neural net. No doubt that's significant. It's our ability to basically put that at scale in platforms that can deliver remote patient management. And then finally, it's our ability to drive business, to go to market, to bring in executives like myself and my network, and really pick those areas that we want to go deep into. And then I pull in my resources, to really affect that, to drive that value. So, as I look at, say 2024, the new Q1 24 calendar is a building for this. It's building out the base of, HealthGauge. It's building out the base of AIMLF, which is the Tech to Heal venture in North America. As I roll into Q2 and beyond, it's all about building my go-to-market team. And that's where I think we're going to find a big differentiator, because not only do we have fabulous technology, fabulous relationships and networks, but we've got a proven team, and I'm leading it to basically ensure that we can drive the value for the shareholders.
Lovely. I didn't have another question, but I know people, and you don't want to, maybe reveal what your favorite is, but we can cut it out if not. But what are you most excited about? What's your favorite product going into the next sort of Q1 really? What are you most excited about?
Yeah, there's a couple. There's one that I think is going to blow the socks off of everybody as we come into Q3 and 4. So that I think will be a wonderful another session. But what I think is going to really differentiate AIML, one of the things that these watches, this is an Apple Watch, doesn't do, and this is the same with Garmin, Fitbit, and others, is they do not provide you with a raw data signal. So even though you wear your watch and it tells you how many calories you took and how many steps you took, yeah, that's nice. But medical and so from a healthcare point of view, it's really not that meaningful. It's anecdotal indeed. What you really need is you need a raw signal data. So you need roughly about 30, 45, 60 seconds of absolute full-on data captured through ECG and PPG smart sensors that can give you that raw data, that time series data that is rich. It's got so much information inside of it that you can go blood pressure, heart rate variability, O2, all the way down the line. And that is a product that we are releasing at the end of January. It's called our Pulse Whisperer. It utilizes our firmware, our SDK, and our APIs, but it also allows others to access and license our proprietary and patented neural network. And so if I have that volume of rich time series data at my disposal for research and for product development, it's natural that I want predictive analytics. And so when you think about that, and another company that ThreeD AI have called them, they've got an extraordinary predictive analytics platform that we're able to provide that time series data to. So I think it's the marriage of our Pulse Whisperer product used in a variety of use cases like research, and then applying that, aligning that to some predictive analytics. So because of that data, researchers can forward think and essentially handicap where they think outcomes are going to come from. And that's the beginning of clinical trials. And so I'm very excited about that because I can see them stitched together quite nicely as we move toward the second half of the year with the distributed clinical trial management system now available to deliver those clinical trials. So that's a very long answer to a very short question. You can summarize simply in the Pulse Whisperer.
No, really good. No, I like it a lot. And you spoke very clearly. And everything's very straightforward. So thank you very much for your time, Paul. And we'll have you on again soon. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, Hector.
Cheers.
Have a great afternoon.